It seems like it was only yesterday. It seems like it was only yesterday that the Melvins walked into All Saints, invited by a friend to participate in the atrium, in the choirs, an invitation that happened by the poolside during a hot August day, maybe, not like the chilly morning we have today. It seems like only yesterday, perhaps, that Camille was welcomed into this world, though it was almost 5 years ago. It seems like only yesterday, though it was only 8 years ago, that Lila was welcomed into this world. Maybe you feel like it was only yesterday that you first walked through these doors, or you first welcomed somebody into your life who would forever change your life. Maybe it feels like it was just yesterday that you were walking through these waters of baptism. But they grow up so quickly, don't they? I wonder sometimes if Mary might have felt the same. I mean, it seems like it was only yesterday that we were receiving gifts from the Magi. I mean, it was only a couple weeks ago that we were welcoming shepherds and angels and all the hosts of heaven for our Christmas pageants. It seems like it was only yesterday. But here we are today, and we have before us a full-grown Jesus, a full-grown John, out in the wilderness at the River Jordan, no longer little kids, but grown up and proclaiming some important truths. Now, I don't know how well Jesus and John knew one another. They were cousins, but we don't know whether they grew up going over to one another's houses for holidays, or whether they had only heard tale of these stories of their miraculous births, but perhaps didn't really know each other as adults. We don't know. What we do know is that John did not follow in the footsteps of Zechariah, his father. Zechariah, who was a priest in the temple, John might have been expected to follow in his father's footsteps. But John, rather, follows in the footsteps of the prophets of old. He goes out into the wilderness. He dresses a bit odd. He has a funky diet. And he proclaims some important truths. All of the people had gone out to see him. In this space at the Jordan was not a convenient space. This was not near the comforts of home. This was not near the big city. They had to go out some distance to go and to hear John. But remember that the wilderness was the place where God had called the people of Israel out of Egypt. It is the place of encounter with God. It is a place of dependence upon God, where we can't put on airs of having it all together, of self-sufficiency, of all the comforts of home. The wilderness, the Jordan, is a place of encounter with God. And so all the people are questioning in their hearts, is John the one? Perhaps not unlike you and I, who come here today with questions in our own hearts. Questions about how we will experience God. Questions of who will save us. Questions of unlimited answers that keep us up sometimes at night. All the people were questioning in their hearts. Now, baptism, as we experience it today, is a both and. It's a liturgy, a sacrament of some really fascinating dichotomies, and I want to share with them at least two of you today. The first one is that if Jesus was the sinless one, the Holy One of God, and John's baptism was a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, why was Jesus going out to be baptized by John? In another gospel, John will actually protest. He will protest and say, no, you have this all wrong. You have this backwards. I should be baptized by you. But Jesus says, this is necessary to fulfill all righteousness. Jesus will not ask us to do anything that Jesus is not willing to do himself. So on the one hand, baptism is unquestionably about the forgiveness of sin. It is about a clean slate and a new start. But baptism is not just about forgiveness of sin. It is about the kind of life to which we are called. This whole baptismal covenant that you and I are about to recite, either for the first time or for the 100th time. The pattern of life and following Jesus in his baptism, in his life, in his death, and in his resurrection. Now, one of the responses that we will make to these baptismal vows in just a moment is a wonderful combination of our effort and God's grace. You may recall that the answer that the parents and godparents will make to the first questions, and then we will all make to the 5 questions after the Apostles' Creed, the response we will make says, I will, you may know it, with God's help, right? I will, with God's help. It would be wrong-headed. It would be a mistake. It would be a nightmare for us to only say the first part of that. If we were to respond to these questions and say, I will, I've got it figured out, I'm clever enough, I'm strong enough to do all of this by myself, good luck. Nor do we say, oh yeah, God will do it all. God has this figured out and I don't have to do a thing, God will take care of it. We aren't saying that either. In this beautiful alchemy of grace, in one breath we say, I will, and we merge our wills with God as we say, with God's help, which is to say, with God's grace. Grace. And Grace, you may notice, is the middle name of both of these girls to be baptized today, a family name that has become a way of knowing one another and being able to say, grace is this pure gift that we have experienced from God. In our Old Testament reading, it says that God calls us each by name. God knows our name. In this name of grace, though it seems like it was only yesterday, we find that today is the day. Today is the day that we recall Jesus' baptism at the River Jordan. Though it seems like it was only yesterday, today is the day that we remember our own baptisms. And though it seems like it was only yesterday, today is the day that we welcome new life, this new life of grace that reminds us, as we follow Jesus in his baptism, we are following him in his life.